She's a fun-loving girl and amazingly funky.
Stunning beauty, and she plays this beast called percussion.
It's like, who is this? A model up here playing? It's almost like taking the Prince sound to another level.
Music brought us together. We didn't want to fall in love, but we did.
There was nothing that Prince could take from her. She had it already.
We just needed to take a break on all levels. The more money you make, the more things you want.
She said she changed a little bit. She changed big time.
I've created a monster.
Oh my God, we need to take you to the hospital.
I knew, something's wrong.
Am I gonna die? You're telling me I'm gonna die?
Uncompromised. Unrecognized. Unparalleled. Unsung. The story of Sheila E. (1984). As Prince tops the charts with his landmark album, Purple Rain, his star percussionist, Sheila E., is stepping out from his shadow with her own pop smash, The Glamorous Life.
Not only was she fine, but she could play. She was like the total package.
This girl was destined for large and big things.
Throughout the 80s, Sheila E. and Prince made music together, on and off the stage, with a string of sexy songs that bonded them forever in the public eye.
You can watch them on stage and they move the same. They hear something that none of us would hear.
You marry the Escovedo sound to the funk of a Minneapolis-based Prince, something magical is going to happen.
But Sheila E. was more than a Prince protege. She was a pioneering percussionist from a famous musical family who'd already held her own beside stars like George Duke, Diana Ross, and Marvin Gaye.
She inspired women to play. She inspired women to stand up and say, I want to do this.
She can play with the best of them because she has the strength within her of any man walking this planet.
But at the height of her success, a more sinister challenge would abruptly derail Sheila E.'s career, alter her direction, and threaten her life.
How could we fix this? How do we make it better? How do we put air back in her lungs so that, she can breathe?
How do my legs not work? What does that mean? Why don't they work?
For Sheila Escovedo, music was always in her blood and in her bloodlines.
This is the house here, 920 East 21st Street, Oakland. This is where, musically, we did a lot of playing here. A lot of playing, a lot of jam sessions.
Her father, Pete, and his two brothers were at the core of Oakland's Latin music scene. Congueros, who played with stars from Tito Puente to Santana.
We always had music in the house, and there was always parties and people hanging out. It was the place to be. It was our house. There was a time when Pops was playing with Santana, and Carlos sat out here with us, and then they took off and went out on tour.
Everybody in the neighborhood used to always come by the house. Then, when you get in the house, you hear the music.
It's a very, very musical family because we live the music. All our lives revolve around living in the music business. That's all we do.
The oldest of Pete and Juanita Escovedo's 4 children, Sheila quickly made her ambitions clear.
When she was just a baby, there would be a commercial that come on TV. she would hear that jingle and she would go over to the drums and start hitting it.
She couldn't even stand up, but she was dancing. And then when Pete started playing congas, she would come and mimic him.
Watching Pops play every day, I just sat there and looked at him and watched. And everything that his right hand would do, my left hand would do. And so I looked at him as mirror image.
Sensing her musical talent, her parents signed Sheila up for music lessons, not on percussion, but for violin.
They said, why don't you try violin? Because then you can make money, you can play for the movies and score and, you know, read music and all of these things that he hadn't done.
When my daughter's playing violin, she doesn't have to play the hard things that I go through musically. She could be in the symphony.
All the kids that I hung out with, they thought it was pretty square, so I got dogged for carrying around a violin case. You know, some of the so-called gang members were like, you can't carry that violin around.
On the hard streets of East Oakland, Sheila and her siblings' mixed racial identity caused problems as well.
Growing up, I really kind of didn't know I was Hispanic. I was more so believing and knowing because my mom was Creole. We thought we were black, and it was either black or white.
We weren't trying to listen to Latin music. We weren't into salsa music. We didn't even know what it was about. For us, it was all Motown.
But by the late 60s and early 70s, the Bay Area had become a musical melting pot. The Escovedos fit right in.
Tower Power, Santana, Sly Stone, all of that music was coming out of that area.
If someone was rehearsing, we'd find out where that was, and we'd catch a bus and go stand outside and just listen right on the corner.
In the 70s, on every block throughout East and West Oakland, of course, you know, North Oakland as well, everybody had a band.
By age 15, Sheila was playing in a band called Grito, while also jamming with her brothers.
It was, I think, as simple as one day, you know, we said, well, let's go outside and play. No, we did that yesterday. Well, let's go play basketball. No, I don't feel like playing basketball. Well, let's start a band. All right, whatever.
We started there. We were just having fun, and we will always see who came up with a new pattern or play better than the other person.
As we all started to progress in our talent, we're like, oh man, they took an incredible solo. Now I got to step up my game.
Meanwhile, Pete and Coke Escovedo had scored their own record deal with a Latin fusion big band they called Azteca. But just before a major gig in the early 70s, their conga player got sick.
I was going, man, who am I going to get to take his place? And of course, my wife said, take Sheila.
I knew all the music to the show because they rehearsed at the house all the time. You know, I was 15. I said, Pops, please let me just play the show.
Taking her out on the road, hanging with all the musicians and, you know, all the craziness. I said, I don't know.
Long story short, he had no one to take the other percussion player's place. So I went and did that show. And that show, that one specific show, turned my life around. That was it.
Took her to Bogota, Colombia. We played in the bull rings. And she played. The people went crazy. They just went bananas to see a girl play like that.
Sheila and her father went on to record 2 albums, produced by Billy Cobham. Then she got an offer to tour with family friend and jazz fusion star George Duke, who figured Sheila would turn heads in more ways than one.
I went to Pete and said, look, I'll keep the hounds away. Don't worry about her. You know, me and you know, I'm gonna take care of her. I will not let anything happen to her. And that was a full-time job because the hounds were after her.
You can't just walk on George Duke's stage and be messing around, half-stepping. You got to come with it. And brilliant that she was coming with it at that early an age.
And she would amaze people. I mean, she started playing, I could watch the crowd and just like people's eyes.
It didn't hurt to be a beautiful Latina female. And then you put the sticks in her hand, and then you couldn't believe it.
But Sheila's status as a rare female percussionist brought a different kind of scrutiny.
Other drummers would absolutely come to me and say something sarcastic or, you're just here because you know George Duke or Billy Cobham or whatever. Someone would always say something.
Men would come up to her and say, why would you be playing this instrument? It's our instrument. So they claimed it literally as their instrument.
And so that strengthened me musically because I had to really get into it, and really figure out what is my heart telling me to play? What is my heart telling me to do? And that's how I play, from my heart.
Beat me up.
Sheila Escovedo. All right.
While playing with George Duke in 1978, Sheila was approached by another up-and-coming musician who just put out his first record, Prince.
I met Prince at a club, Circle Star Theater in San Francisco. And I said, my name is, and he turned around and he said, I already know who you are. You're Sheila Escovedo. And I went, huh? Like, how did he even know me? And he said, I've been following your career. And I said, really?
We were living in Oakland, I believe, on High Street. And Prince came downstairs, and we showed him all our instruments, and we're playing, and he jumped to every instrument, congas, bongos, drums, piano, whatever. And I'm like, wow, this guy can play.
And I had a piano and a bass in the room downstairs, and so we just started jamming and playing.
For Sheila, it was just the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
She was definitely getting ready to head out there and head for the stars.
I said, man, this woman, if she could sing, I said she could rule the world.
You're a sinner, I don't care. I just want your pretty girl. Maybe we can make some fun. You're so pretty, you and me, ride and sing.
Thank you very kindly, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, can you put a light back there on Sheila and her fine percussive group, Joe? Yeah. See this young lady up there and the two fine gentlemen? Aren't they terrific?
By the early 1980s, Sheila Escovedo was a percussionist on everyone's call sheet. From Herbie Hancock to Diana Ross to soul superstar Marvin Gaye.
I did not plan to be in that group. They hired Sheila, and Sheila says, hey, come down to LA and I want you to hang out with, I'm playing with Marvin Gaye. I go, yeah. When Sheila has it in her head, she's gonna make sure, come on, just, come play with us.
While Sheila was on the road, she got a call from Prince, who was working on what would...
Is he really saying it? Or is he saying funk? Or is he saying...
Radic City, can't you see? So pretty, you and me.
I always thought he said funk because I wanted to play that version.
There were some words in the song that I thought, I can't say that. So I didn't. And he said it, and I didn't say it. So he kind of ducked, so it made it sound like maybe you did hear it, maybe you didn't hear it, but I didn't say it.
And the fact that our very own Sheila E. was now, putting down tracks and performing live with Prince gave us a tremendous amount of inspiration here in the town. It was like a family member had made it big.
Playing out their musical romance, the pair began dating as well.
We were friends first. And being that friend, you fall in love with your best friend, and that's awesome. We didn't want to fall in love. Music brought us together, but we did.
Erotic City and the Purple Rain tour that followed also marked the beginning of Sheila Escovedo's transformation into Sheila E. and all that came with it.
You start creating an image that people can relate to. Your name changes, you know, you go out there and you need to keep people's attention.
I wasn't too happy with the whole thing. I mean, to be honest, I didn't like that direction of where she was going. I was afraid of what would happen to her and to her career. The first thing I asked her was, is this what you want? And she said, yeah. So I said, well, you know, go do your thing, you know, and just hope it turns out for the best.
Purple Rain Tour was something that I'll never forget. It was, I think, the start of, you know, Sheila E. as Sheila E. and not Sheila Escovedo, and it turned my life around.
Opening for Prince on tour, and with her brother Juan playing percussion in the band, Sheila brought audience members on stage for a sexy tease.
She was half dressed a lot, and yeah, it bothered me, but you know, like she said, it was something she felt. It was something, it was part of her. It was at that time.
I said, you know what? There are no rules. So I could do whatever I want. So absolutely, let's see how sexy I can get. It was so crazy that there were times during the Purple Rain Tour that Prince turned to me, he said, are you sure you want to do this? You know, and I'm like, heck yeah.
Prince had also helped Sheila prepare her debut album.
He said, okay, well, I can make it happen for you if you want to do a record. I said, just like that? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, well, let's do a record then. Glamorous Life was almost the first song I think we recorded, but it didn't have any lyrics. And we just kept going. And I want to say, seriously, by 7 or 8 days, the record was done.
Glamorous Life. You know, the way it made me move, the way it made my body move, the way it made me feel, because, you know, drums are the essence of a dancer's movement.
She had to emphasize the percussion part as being a drummer, especially on Glamorous Life.
She was bringing it, and people really responded to that. They'd never seen anything like it before.
The Glamorous Life hit the top 10 on the R&B, pop, and dance chart. And it got Sheila a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist.
When it came out, she didn't have a band. So now she has to do a video. And Zeno's playing lead guitar on that song. If you watch the video, I'm playing piano and my brother is playing sax. Now I go back to my 8 to 5 job. People see me and they're like, what are you doing here working 8 to 5? You're on this video, Glamorous Life? And I'm going, Sheila, this is not cool. I'm in the video, you need me in the band. So eventually, you know, I got in the band.
The video became an MTV favorite and made Sheila an icon for women who were determined to have it all.
I was going to do everything that I could to make sure that we did all press, you know, everything that we had to do, shoot a video, you know, all the things that you dream about to be successful. And the vision was to become glamorous, still be the woman that I am, and then tear the heck out of those timbales.
Sheila E. was living the dream, whatever the consequence.
Everything you do, they're saying yes to you. Yeah, her head got big.
I've got all this money and I can walk in and just buy whatever I want. I've created a monster.
By the mid-'80s, Sheila E.'s partnership with Prince had transformed her from serious player to sexy star.
It's me creating a character. I had to look at it as me not being the Latin jazz artist. This is now pop, so at some point you have to look and say, how am I going to entertain the people? How am I going to do that?
Not wasting a beat, Sheila followed up the glamorous life with a self-penned single that became a concert favorite, titled The Belle of St. Mark.
She always had that very soft voice, which was very effective. It's almost, to me, it kind of conjures up the sounds of like a Brazilian singer. And I thought it was very effective, especially with the rhythm section kind of burning behind her.
She had to come out from behind those drums and get herself to the front of the stage and say, here I am, you know, and let her personality out.
The song helped propel Sheila's debut album to #7 on the R&B charts. By now, she was living the glamorous life for real.
I became this person where the more money you make, the more things you want, the more that you want to not ask people but tell people what to do. I became that person, absolutely.
I just really try to pull a coattail a little bit and say, you know, treating some people a little wrong, you know, you shouldn't talk to people like that. But you know what? If you have 30 people around you saying you're the best in the world, you're just amazing, you know, everything you do, they're saying yes to you. Yeah, her head got big.
It became, I want this, I don't want to wait, I want it now. And I have to apologize to everyone that I was wrong to. And I'm still apologizing, still apologizing.
But there was no slowing down. In 1985, she released her second album, Romance 1600, propelled by a duet written by Prince and Sheila called A Love Bazaar.
Love Bazaar, the horns. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. That was a beautiful duet between her and Prince.
Love Bazaar, you know, another great track. It's like just the groove of making your body move, you know?
What they do together, songs, performance, I must admit that the two of them, they do have a great chemistry. They do work very well together.
A Love Bazaar reached #1 on the dance charts and #2 R&B, while sending the album into the top 20. Sheila E. was racing as fast as she could until she hit the wall.
It was all about, you know, being sexy, which, you know, I took it to the extreme. And then I felt empty. I started to feel something was missing. There it is. Check this out. Here's what I used to do. I used to do this. I used to go into the record stores, wherever we went, and I'd just make sure that the record store was carrying my CD. And then I'd do like this. I'd come over here. Let's see, where's Sheila E? Sheila E. Oh, here it is, right here. This is what I used to do, just that, right there. Because, you know, it costs to put it in the front now, so I just made sure everywhere I went, that's what I did. Bam! You know what I'm talking about.
With 2 hot-selling albums, Sheila E. was determined to make the most of her success. In 1985, she appeared in the hip-hop movie Crush Groove, where she showcased another hit she wrote called Holly Rock.
They thought I was coming in as a female rapper, and I said, that's not what I am. I'm a musician. I'm an entertainer, I'm a musician, I'm not a rapper.
At the time that Crush Groove hit, many of us had already started to aspire to be, you know, hip-hop artists, rap artists. And to see our very own Sheila E. and Crush Groove gave us another shot of adrenaline and hope that as artists, aspiring artists, we can do this.
Sheila was a woman in demand. But even while pushing her solo career, she continued to play with Prince on his Sign of the Times movie and tour, an all-consuming affair.
We'd go to sound check, and sound check lasted sometimes for 2 hours, and then we would play the show. That lasted 2 to 3 hours because not only my show, then we'd end up playing with Prince at the end of his show, and after that, then we'd sometimes do after party. It was constant music.
They're both very strong perfectionists. You know, they have to make sure that every note is played right, that everything is right as far as lighting and, you know, clothing and, you know, make sure that, you know, this goes timing-wise the way that this is.
We just worked because we loved being in the studio. So, you know, half the time we'd go until we couldn't go anymore. So I have no idea, there's no separation for when one project started and one ended, because we were just mixing everything and we just kept putting out product.
Sheila stayed high on the charts with her self-titled third album, fueled by a slow-burning single called Hold Me.
I love the melody on that song, and I love where it went. Touch Me, Hold Me, I mean, it kind of says it all. It's just a romantic song that I think everybody and anybody can relate to.
Hold Me reached number 3 on the R&B charts. But even as Sheila was pressed to exploit her sexy image, the glamorous life was losing its sheen.
Then the reviews started to say, what is Sheila not gonna wear? It wasn't about, man, she was incredible, great solo. She's a fantastic musician. It was, what is Sheila not wearing? Then I started to feel naked in the wrong way. And that affected me, and I said to Prince, I don't wanna do this. This is not right. And he kind of looked at me like I had to learn myself, because I think he might have saw that.
For years, Sheila and Prince had maintained a relationship that mixed music with romance. But after serving as his band's musical director on the 1988 Love Sexy tour, Sheila left Prince's organization for good.
Knowing him for so long, I think it's harder to be in a relationship and work together like we did. I mean, it was fine, and I think it worked for so long, but we just needed to take a break, you know, on all levels, you know, musically and physically.
But Sheila continued her career at a breakneck pace. She released her 4th album, the first to feature her own band on record, and scored another top 40 hit with the title track Sex Symbol, while touring constantly.
She was so driven. Like, after we do a show, we can go to the hotel and rest. Sheila would get on a plane and go somewhere else and do an interview, like in Europe, Chile, wherever. I mean, she was constantly moving.
Listen to the rhythm while I'm hyping up the tempo.
She just goes. And every time I see her, I say, have you got some rest? And she'll laugh. Yeah, right, you know, like, yeah, I got some rest.
Sometimes your hands start bleeding, and that was the wear and tear. It's like, from what we heard from doctors, they tell us that banging on the drums like this really just, It kind of like, it's like hitting a brick wall constantly. My hands would bleed. They would slice in half. Like, for a very long time, my fingerprints here, they were gone.
By the turn of the 1990s, the energy of Sheila's music belied her condition. Years of touring and the physical demands of her music were wearing her down.
You know, with Prince and with my show, I would play a good 8 hours a day at least, or 10, but that's straight hardcore playing. And my body just, it was worn down. And so I finally stopped for a minute to do my 4th record, and that's when that happened.
While on tour in 1990, Sheila sought medical relief for a pinched nerve in her neck and shoulder.
I went to someone who was highly recommended. Went to him, he did acupuncture, and they actually punctured my lung. And then I walked around for about a week with my lung punctured. I didn't even know that my lung had collapsed. Went into a hospital, and then they said, your left lung is 80% collapsed. And the first thing I think is, okay, but am I gonna die? Because I don't know what that means. You're telling me I'm gonna die?
Ever since she could remember, Sheila E. had defined her life through music. But by the early 1990s, health issues had put that confidence to the test.
Not only did my lung collapse, and my back went out too. And I was partially paralyzed for about 2 weeks. I couldn't walk at all. I just fell to my knees and I couldn't get up and walk.
She literally had an issue with not only walking, but she wasn't able to eat. Something was really going on with her body.
I just was freaking out because I thought, why did this happen? How do my legs not work? What does that mean? You know, why don't they work?
There's that strong woman who was all of a sudden very humbled by this illness that she couldn't cope with really very well.
When they took x-rays, it was because of me playing drums, and my body was twisted, you know, from playing all these years and playing in my heels. And it shortened my calf muscle, which it wouldn't look like it, but it shortened my calf muscle, and my torso was turned like this.
She didn't tell me till later. She didn't want us to worry about her. But yeah, it took that to get her to slow down.
It slowed her down to the point where she was not in control, because normally Sheila E. was in control of everything.
With Sheila unable to tour, her Sex Symbol album faltered, stalling at number 56 on the R&B charts. It would be her last major label release. But Sheila had deeper concerns.
I had to start all over by trying to walk. It took me 4 months to walk straight. 4 months of therapy every single day, twice a day, to get me to walk 6 blocks. I mean, it was amazing, and I just said, okay, I need to change my life. That's it.
For Sheila, part of that change was a deepening spiritual awareness.
Music is spiritual to me. It's healing. It's everything to me. There is a spiritual connection. God has given me this gift to share with everyone.
As Sheila gradually recovered her health, she changed her musical priorities, moving away from the pop spotlight and back toward her roots.
I just wanted to play music again, so I put together a band called the E-Train, and I wanted to play some jazz and just start over again. It worked because I felt great once I started doing that. We toured in the States, we went to Japan, we went to Europe. We had a blast. It was like a 5-piece band, it was small, and we just played.
This is amazing.
The Mystery Club, the old club.
Meanwhile, the rest of Sheila E.'s family stayed on the move. Pete Escovedo ran several clubs in the Bay Area, including Mr. E's, which became a popular musician's hangout.
There was music 7 nights a week, so it didn't matter what night you came. I think on Wednesday they had salsa, Thursdays with jazz, but there's always great music in this club.
Peter Michael became a composer and musical director for Martin Short's and Wayne Brady's variety shows. He also toured with artists like Lionel Richie and Mariah Carey, while Juan toured and recorded with a who's who of stars, from Barry White to Hammer.
I toured with Hammer, I toured with Patti LaBelle, different artists. So I would leave town, Sheila would leave town, my brother was doing TV.
It's just bouncing all over the place. And then doing Pops' records and playing Latin music when we're in the Bay Area and when we're in town is just, it's a testament to how wonderful the Bay Area was and the music that we were accustomed to.
By the early 2000s, Sheila had returned to the pop scene as well. She played with Ringo Starr's all-star band while directing Beyoncé's promo tour for her hit single, Work It Out. Years before that, she rekindled her relationship with Prince while nurturing a musical partnership that continues to this day.
We separated and broke away. I don't even know for how long or whatever. We hadn't seen each other, but then, when we saw each other for being absent for a long time, we saw each other, it was like, God, we can't deny that we're still in love, So it was that kind of thing, and I think people understand that. He'll always love me and I'll always love him. But at the same time, I think it's better that we're friends. I think the relationship has lasted longer because we're still friends.
What happened between them is they were too much like each other. And I think it canceled itself out. And I think that because they were so much alike, literally you can watch them on stage and they move the same. But I think that the friendship would definitely outlast an intimate relationship.
Sheila E. had gotten her life back. Now she vowed to help others by revisiting a childhood trauma.
And I was raped at 5 years old. And that's how it all started.
Sheila Escovedo grew up playing music with her family. 4 decades later, in 2011, she joined her father and brothers for their first family album, Now and Forever, and for a percussive reunion on stage.
Everybody does their own thing, but it's great that we can still get together and do something together as a family and make it work.
We're a lot closer than we've been in a long time, and it's only because we're playing together, and we have to be together to be on stage.
When you start listening and you're listening to what we're doing, it becomes that conversation, and to me, then it becomes spiritual because you're connecting with what God has given me.
But for decades, the positive spirit of Sheila's music had been shadowed by a dark secret. As a young child, she endured the trauma of sexual abuse.
A babysitter, he lived upstairs, and I was raped at 5 years old. And that's how it all started, and molested during that period of time after that.
We got on the subject of how abuse happens in families. And I said to her, well, honestly, I was molested when I was 12. And she looked at me and she said, wow, she says, I was raped when I was 5. And we were like, why us? Like, what was it about us?
That basically made me a person that was kind of angry. I was angry at everyone. And realizing later on that holding all of this in, not knowing how to share it or say to someone, if you told me this dress was red and I'd say, no, it's blue, knowing that it was red, I just had to disagree with you.
And we thought, there's gotta be millions of people across this nation who are going through the same thing. So what are we gonna do?
So in 2001, Sheila and her co-manager Lynn Mabry co-founded the Elevate Hope Foundation to help young people who've been harmed by abuse and offering a way out through artistic expression.
We use music and arts as therapy to help the kids in foster care because a lot of them who are abused, either mentally, physically, or spiritually, whatever, in some sort of way, there's no communication. And they're able to express themselves in a way where if they can't tell you, they do it through their hands, through their music. Even if they didn't say anything to you, you saw what they started with and what the outcome is.
I've seen tons of celebrities write checks, pop up and say hi, and then they're gone. But Sheila has relationship with kids. You can catch any kid that's ever seen Sheila that was in the system and had an interaction with her, and Sheila's probably still in contact with them. That's the kind of woman she is.
You know, I wanted kids. I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids, but I wanted to be married first. I look at it now as even, you know, Elevate Hope. It's like, these are my kids. I'm at a point where I guess these are my, not I guess, I know that they're part of my kids.
Though Sheila has never married, she says she's still open to finding the right guy.
This finger is still empty. It's still empty. It's a little dusty, but it's still here. But I would love to be married. I'd love to find a wonderful man who is just as passionate as I am.
She's so used to being in control. I don't see any man dealing with Sheila. I'm sorry to say, but it's gonna be a hard gig. But she's so sweet. That's the thing. She's sweet. She's a loving, caring person. But a lot of men don't know that and can't get past through that door. But once you get past that door of Sheila, you know, you see the true Sheila.
I don't know, this is my belief. I think that women should be whole anyway. I think that she should come to a man whole, and I think a man should come to a woman whole, and then they equally come together as one.
Yeah, I think music has really been her husband for a long time, but she needs a husband, a physical husband. I want to walk down the aisle and give my daughter away. So come on, guys out there, make some calls, my brothers.
For Sheila E. and her family, music has always been at the heart of who she is and what she does. And she wouldn't have it any other way.
Sheila Escovedo and Sheila E. are two different people. They both are loving and warm and giving, but now I think that she's a lot more grounded in life.
Just we always believe in just doing our best, but the main thing is have fun doing it. As long as you have fun, you'll be successful. So have fun and enjoy this life that we have.
Our family, we're not perfect at all, and we do the best that we can. Our goal really every day is to make people happy. If we reach one person and put a smile on their face, I think that's what we want to be known for, is to make someone happy.